It's time to get ready for the Buffalo Bills Week 13 contest against the Kansas City Chiefs, and I'm joined by Locked On Chiefs host Ryan Tracy to discuss it today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of Go Bills and Buffalo's Run, also the co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This crossover Thursday episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. I'm Joe Marino, host of Locked On Bills, joined by Ryan Tracy, the host of Locked On Chiefs. We're here to get you ready for Bills Chiefs on Sunday. Is it week 14 already? Is that where we're at in the season? The 6-6 Buffalo Bills, the 11 seed Buffalo Bills at 6-6, heading to Kansas City to face the 8-4 Kansas City Chiefs. Ryan, welcome. We've got an interesting football game to talk about, and a game that these teams both need to win.
Yeah, you're not kidding. I mean, it is to that point. And I expected us, man, just hearing you say 11, I was expecting us to be talking this point of year as the 1 and the 2 is my preseason prediction. So I clearly am way off. But yeah, it's flown by. And obviously there's been ups and downs for both teams. But at this point, it is desperation time. That's got to be the biggest thing going for both of them, having stumbled so far this season, right?
Well, I feel like Kansas City's in certainly in a much better spot to win the AFC West and host playoff games. Will they be the 1 seed? You know, is Patrick Mahomes going to have to go on the road this year? We'll see. But the Bills aren't in that conversation. No, I mean, the Bills are hoping to go on a run and get a little help along the way to get into the dance. And the Bills are a very capable football team, and I'm sure any team in the AFC would not love to host them in the playoffs, but that's what the Bills need to do here. And that's, as we get into the biggest storyline for each team, for the Bills, it's about going on a run. And the Bills are coming out of their bye week, which comes after their heartbreaking loss to the Philadelphia Eagles. So they go into their bye week, they're 6-6. They find themselves coming out of the bye week as the 11 seed in the AFC. Now, the Bills have been very good coming out of the bye under Sean McDermott, 6-0 so far to this point. I think the performance of the team out of the bye has been a little bit different than the record. While they've never lost coming out of the bye under Sean McDermott, I'm not sure they've always been crisp coming out of the bye. But I will say this: they better be ready to go on a run here because the Bills not making the playoffs, that's going to lead to some really interesting conversations. But as we mentioned, 6-6, the 11 seed. They've lost 3 of their last 4 games. Ryan, they're 2-4 in their last 6. It's unbelievable. It's a very capable football team, but they've been wildly inconsistent. They've had sloppy moments. They've had end of game blunders, whether it's the Eagles game that I think most people watched, or the Broncos and how they had too many guys on the field for the game winning field goal that was missed. And, they've turned it over 4 times. I know that you certainly know all about those pesky Broncos, right? They've had inexplicable losses. They've lost to the Jets. They've lost to the Patriots. They've done those things this year. And so now it's do or die in Arrowhead against a familiar foe, the Chiefs, right? The Bills play the Chiefs every year. It seems to be a tradition like no other. And the Bills have actually been able to win in the regular season the last 2 years in Arrowhead Stadium. And they're playing a Chiefs team coming off of a loss against the Packers, right? And we know that the Chiefs coming off of a loss is a dangerous football team. Since 2017, Kansas City is an NFL best 20-7 coming off of a loss. And the Bills, also coming off of a loss, have the second best win percentage in the NFL over that span of time. So something's got to give here. Either the Bills are going to give Sean McDermott his first loss coming off of a bye, or the Chiefs won't have their dominance coming after a loss. But obviously an important football game for both teams. But for the Bills, it's about going on a run, and that starts in Arrowhead on Sunday.
And it's funny, all these consistencies between these two teams. Not only did I think they'd be 1-2, but like you said, the common loss to the Broncos, 3-point loss for you guys to the Eagles, 4-point loss to the Eagles for the Chiefs. Like, they are neck and neck. And while you guys got to go on a run, for the Chiefs, the primary focus is figure yourselves out. Who are you? Because for the first time in Andy Reid's regime, this team is better when they run with a significant percentage on the ground. That's a departure from what we've seen in the past. And it is completely related to the pass game not being as consistent as it has been in years past and not giving Patrick Mahomes the options that he's used to. Now, this was a calculated move by the Chiefs front office, and it put them in this situation. For me, as someone who likes old school football, the defense is resurgent this year, although let's leave out the snow game in Green Bay. The run game is more prevalent. The magic number is 15 carries for Isiah Pacheco. That generally is what gets the job done in terms of making the offense churn a little bit more. But they don't have the chunks, and they're not completing downfield passes at the same rate that they have in years past. And that's due to the personnel. Nothing's coming to save that right now. So it's about figuring out, looking in the mirror, and knowing who you are, who you going to be. And that's still the question because the experimentation goes on. Kadarius Toney has been healthy for half of the season and has not been used or utilized in any significant fashion. Sky Moore has not progressed in his development due to whatever the communication factors are, and they are generally communication factors with the quarterback. Whereas rookie Rashee Rice is right now poised to, if he stays on this streak, to rival Dwayne Bowe for the best rookie season of a Chiefs wide receiver in history. So the dichotomy here for them is, what do we lean on? What can we take away? And who can we be in this 2023 season that we weren't last season or in the 19 season? Departure from the previous, I think, is the hangover that's really bothering the Chiefs, and they just got to figure themselves out.
Yeah, the script feels really different for Kansas City this year. Like you kind of got into defensively, they look really strong. But what's interesting to me, and I'm hoping to get you to expand on this a little bit, from an outsider's perspective, we all said, well, it's Patrick Mahomes. It's Andy Reid. You know, they swap with basically the receivers weren't good last year. Like, it was the same situation, was Juju was there and Rashee Rice wasn't. So you swap those two players. Rashee Rice might be a better player, but Patrick Mahomes is the MVP. They won the Super Bowl. What gives here? Like, what is it? Is it teams kind of catching up to some of that style? Do they just not have separation ability? What's missing here that is such a drastic difference, it feels like, from the outside looking in?
The number one thing is being on the same page when you're reading pre-snap. These receivers have not come along and progressed enough in understanding what the quarterback's looking at. Now, Rashee Rice is obviously the exception, like you said. What that leads to is even the veterans are missing some of the same reads, where you don't see a ball put outside the numbers where you want MVS to go catch it, and he runs the route too narrow and too skinny inside, and he has to make a last-second adjustment. Those things don't work, especially with that particular receiver. We've seen a number of drops. It's been an influenza of drops in Kansas City this season. No one has an explanation for it. The CDC is investigating, as I understand, but there's no cure in sight at this point. And so it all comes back to, what can you change up? And then you have to remove the press factor, because Patrick Mahomes is going to look for those home runs every single time, but they haven't been there as often. And so I do feel that there's a little bit of pressing from the quarterback as well to try and make those plays when they do materialize. And it just hasn't been synchronous. And that's the number one thing. I think they need to lock them all in a room, sweat lodge maybe, and get them all together.
Yeah, it's been interesting to see. I felt like a calculated choice to have this group of receivers. And it's so far doesn't look like it's been the right decisions. Although, I mean, the Chiefs still have Patrick Mahomes. They're playing good defense, and they're going to be in the playoffs, right? So nobody's going to want to play the Chiefs in the playoffs. So maybe they haven't played their best football, but I'm sure they're looking to flip that switch. And, I heard Patrick Mahomes a few weeks ago, after I forget which primetime game it was, he said, we're going to figure it out on offense. And I believed him. So I think it's probably just a matter of time there. Because that is, that's QB1 in the NFL, the best player in the NFL. And maybe the season hasn't been vintage Patrick Mahomes, but he's still Patrick Mahomes, dude. Like, nobody wants to play him. So it'll be interesting to see how this all unfolds on Sunday afternoon. And we're going to talk about the matchups that are going to decide the game here in just a moment. So stick with us. But when you're hiring for your small business, you want to be certain that you have as many top-tier candidates as possible to interview. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. Thankfully, with LinkedIn, the process is intuitive, quick, and easy. And they even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, Ryan, let's talk matchups that are going to decide the game. I've got my eye on two dynamics here, but I'll defer to you. What's that top matchup for you in this game?
Well, the one that's got me a little bit nervous, and we won't know till later in the week, is the plethora, the stable of edge pass rushers for Buffalo Bills trying to attack rookie Wanya Morris, who right now appears to be a possible start for his first time against the Bills. Donovan Smith went out of the game against Green Bay, an aggravated stinger that, as I understand, is a little bit more advanced than the normal. And so it is very much a question of what he'll do practice-wise and whether he'll be able to go. And that is a scary tactic for a guy that in Morris that is making his first start possibly and really has not had a number of reps against premier pass rush, let alone an entire front that can change things up, change personnel. I'm really concerned about what that's going to do. He's got physical tools, but putting it together, despite playing next to Joe Thuney, is going to be a challenge. And that's one that I'm watching very specifically for how the Bills choose to attack him. And we'll see what they have to do adjustment-wise after that. Do you think that they're going to run a set group, or is this going to be a rotation that just attacks him over on the left tackle spot?
Yeah, it's going to be a rotation. The Bills rotate like crazy on the edge. Von Miller's status, that's obviously something that we don't know the answer to. And if he didn't play, that'd probably be a benefit to the Bills. He has been an absolute slug out there this year, coming back from the ACL injury, just an absolute shell of himself. And so if he didn't play, that actually, I'm not trying to be funny. I think that would help the Bills. I don't think he's been a positive. I've even said when he's on the field, it looks like the Bills are playing defense with 10. But you still have Leonard Floyd, and you have who has 9 sacks already this year, Greg Rousseau, who's had certainly some impact moments against the Chiefs, to go with A.J. Epinesa and Shaq Lawson, those types of players. But Wanya Morris, a player I liked coming out of Oklahoma, man. He was like one of my favorite mid-round offensive tackles. And, I know it's obviously a big thing to step into the lineup, but I thought he had developmental starter ability. And so we'll see what he can do if he's asked to play on Sunday. Ryan, for me, the first one I want to call out is Khalil Shakir and Dalton Kincaid against the Chiefs secondary. Khalil Shakir, the Bills starting slot receiver, Dalton Kincaid, their first-round pick at tight end. These guys have been really important weapons for the Buffalo Bills. In fact, this might surprise people, but Khalil Shakir has actually led the team in receiving over the last 4 games. Yes, Stefon Diggs still plays for the Buffalo Bills. Dalton Kincaid leads the team in receptions over the last 4 games. And the reason I think these two players are really important for the Buffalo Bills is because of, L'Jarius Sneed and Trent McDuffie. Those guys are awesome at corner for Kansas City, and they're going to be, going up against Gabe Davis and Stefon Diggs. And, that's for at least Diggs on McDuffie, which I guess would probably be that assignment. Maybe Sneed, I'm not sure. That's good on good. And I think Gabe Davis he certainly has his moments against the Chiefs, but in reality, I think he's a very limited player that in some ways constipates the Bills' offense. But the reality is, I think for this passing game against a good Chiefs defense, I think it's going to be about continuing to rely on those young players. Kincaid, a rookie, first-round pick. Shakir, a second-year player out of Boise State. I think the involvement that they have and their ability to win is going to be really important for the Bills' offense on Sunday.
Yeah, those two guys that we're going to be in the next segment, for me in particular, Kincaid, who I was really, really high on in terms of being a nice fit here in this offense, together with Dawson Knox, but obviously he's been able to step up in that reign. And he's got the best matchup because Nick Bolton is coming back from injury. We don't even know at this point, and probably won't until Saturday at the earliest, know whether Nick Bolton's going to be able to go. Drew Tranquill is in the concussion protocol. And as we sit here, we don't know if he'll be available. So it was Jack Cochran that had to play out the ball game against the Packers on Sunday Night Football. First major snaps for him and had some issues, as you would for a guy making his first start, special teams only player to that point. So he's going to draw that initial matchup. I think what's interesting is they've allowed Snead to travel in recent weeks with the number one receiver. So you may see Snead on Diggs the majority of the game. And they like to keep McDuffie in the slot if they can. And so the question becomes, as you said, I was pretty high on Shakir as well coming out of Boise. But now that he's picking up, do they just choose to leave McDuffie inside? That is my gut, that they'll just say, we're going to take away the guy that's hot, and we'll take our chances with Gay, who's beaten us in the past. But that outside matchup opposite Jerry Snead is the prime matchup in this case, because both Joshua Williams and Jalen Watson have been rotating as the opposite corner, and they have not been playing up to the standards they set as rookies. A little bit of regression there for the second-year players. And so I think that's probably, if you're scouting this team about where you can make the most hay, that's probably where it's going to be at if you choose not to go and just feed Kincaid pass after pass after pass, which are the two things that keep me up at night.
Well, I'll tell you what, that would be, if I was Kansas City, that's how I'd play the Bills. I would have Snead travel and follow Diggs. I would keep McDuffie in the slot. I think he's important not only for coverage, but how he can fit the run and tackle. And then I would take my chances with Williams or Watson on Gabe Davis, who I just don't think he's hard to cover. And maybe he'll make some plays against the Chiefs, but that would be how I would choose to game plan. And then it really comes down to, well, can the Bills really rely on Dalton Kincaid and James Cook as well? A pass catching running back as well. So very interesting how the Chiefs are going to choose to match up against the Bills. But there's another dynamic for the Bills offense that I am curious about if they can be successful on Sunday, and that's their rush offense against Kansas City. James Cook, the Bills' lead running back, and even Josh Allen in the run game. We've seen that uptick over the last couple of weeks since Joe Brady's become the offensive coordinator. The Chiefs' defense has been good this year, and I think 3 standout performances defensively for them. 2 against Denver, and there was a game earlier in the season, maybe against I can't remember, the Colts or some team you really turtled them up, and that unbelievable performances. But you've seen that rush defense have some issues. 7 straight opponents against KC have over 100 rushing yards, and over that 7-game stretch, they're allowing 127 rushing yards per game. And so for as much as we think about Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and throwing the football and going blow for blow and haymakers and all that type of stuff, as you mentioned, the Chiefs and their ability to run the ball is going to be really important, but also the Bills relying on James Cook and even, I think, involving Josh Allen in the run game is going to be necessary in this game to really test out that Chiefs run defense and see what you can get out of it. And obviously, when you can run the football, it opens up everything.
Yeah, 9 for 81 was Josh last week. Yeah, that's the stuff that keeps Jack Cochran up at night right now. Yeah. You may see a slight shift. They have been running Leo Chanel as a Sam overhang type role. He can come in and play the middle if they need. If neither Bolton nor Tranquil is able to do, that may be a switch that they suggest, again, because he's so good in the A gap and what he did in college and mugging that thing up.
Blitzer, man, he's crazy.
Yeah, and it's a role that he's great at. So we'll see if they choose to maybe switch that up. Cochran has played outside as well. He is a good athlete. So we might see a wholesale change at the linebacker level depending on the injury status of Tranquil and Bolton.
Any other matchups for you, Ryan, as you consider what's going to decide this game on Sunday?
For me, it's can the Chiefs offense get their tackle situation figured out. It's not only the left tackle situation. It's the penalty structure that seems to follow Juwan Taylor wherever he goes. Had a rough start to the season, was getting flagged constantly because of his, what is, I think, a legitimate and very well-timed get off on the snap. But he does leave early at times, and he's had a string of holding penalties lately. So it's not just what they're doing on the left-hand side of the Chiefs offense, but how are they going to try to manipulate? And I don't know that we're going to see a propensity of blitzes to try to double him up, but just single on single. I think he's had some trouble getting beat initially and having to get a little grabby to save that rep. So that's another one to watch. And if they can keep the penalties down, I think they'll be in good shape to be able to move the ball succinctly. And we'll talk about what's going to happen here later because that's going to be key.
All right, well, we will talk about the path for victory for each team here in just a moment. The Chiefs' best interior offensive line in the NFL, the tackles have been the question so far in 2023. But look, folks, if you're anything like me, you get stressed out about holiday shopping and you're trying to find meaningful gifts for your friends and family members, but that can be challenging. And then you're trying to be thoughtful, but you're not looking for something overly complicated. Well, folks, there is a gift that is so easy to give, and everyone will think you spent hours personalizing it, and that's the Skylight digital picture frame. Skylight is a touchscreen photo frame that you can send photos to straight from your phone, and they appear in seconds. In fact, you can even preload photos before the box is open, so that way when it's unwrapped and plugged in, your most treasured memories will appear. It is literally a perfect gift for anyone. You're always figuring out, like, what am I going to get my grandparents? What am I going to get your mother for the 35th year, right? You're trying to get these people holiday gifts. Well, this is something that will be awesome. You can send them pictures all the time, and it'll be a beautiful frame that populates with new content all the time. And in fact, they're confident that you're going to like it. Satisfaction is guaranteed. They're offering a free 120-day return opportunity, and also as a special limited time offer here for our listeners, you can get $15 off your purchase of a Skylight frame when you go to skylightframe.com/lockedon. So to get $15 off your purchase of a Skylight frame, just go to skylightframe.com/lockedon. That's skylightframe.com/lockedon. All right, Ryan, let's talk about what needs to go right for these football teams to win this game. And I think we've certainly built up the importance of this game for both sides of the equation. I'd argue it's bigger for the Bills. But obviously Kansas City's not trying to fall to 8-5, right? Like that's not territory for them. And the Bills 6-7. Are you kidding me? This is what I think has to happen for the Buffalo Bills to win this game. I have three factors. Number one is win in the red zone. I think when you have this caliber of quarterbacks, right, going up against each other, scoring touchdowns in the red zone when you have the football and limiting them to field goals when they're in the red zone is critical. And remember, last year, both of these guys had a red zone turnover, right? Like the first drive for Kyrie Elam picked off Patrick Mahomes, and then Josh Allen had that fumble play to Isaiah McKenzie. It's like, what in the world? I think red zone is going to be critical. And Kansas City so far this year in red zone scoring touchdown percentage, 13th on offense, 21st on defense. That's not where you expect Kansas City to be with Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, right? That should be a top 5 situation. So potentially maybe nowhere to go but up relative to the way you think about this football team. The Bills have been very good in the red zone. Second best red zone scoring offense, 15th on defense, which is, middle of the pack, but a little higher than the 21 that Kansas City comes into. So I think red zone, touchdowns, not field goals, not touchdowns for both teams is going to be critical. Turnovers.
Yeah.
Well, turnovers are also going to be critical for me. Number 2 here, the Bills have got to take care of the football. And they have over the last 2 games, their last 2 games with Joe Brady as the offensive coordinator, turned it over twice, one of those being an end-of-half Hail Mary interception. And so that's been a lot better. That has to continue against Kansas City. Kansas City's been pretty good at taking away the football, but they haven't in the last 2 games, right? No takeaways the last 2 games for Kansas City against the Raiders and the Packers, right? Like the Packers have been giving away the football this year, and Aiden O'Connell and company with the Raiders. So the Bills need to take care of the football again and not give away possessions. And of course, if you can get some takeaways, and that certainly helps. And number 3 is special teams. I know that this is Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes, but the Bills have not been good on special teams this year. Last year, they were number 1 in special teams. This year, not at all. Their punting has been poor. Line drive punts to the middle of the field that are tough to cover. Their field goal kicking has not been good. They're 28th in field goal made percentage this year after they just gave Tyler Bass a contract that pays him among the top 5 highest paid kickers in the league. So there's been some regression there. And they haven't gotten any explosive returns. Now, they've done good to take care of the football and make good decisions, but they haven't benefited from long returns. And so you feel like a game like this could be in the margins, and that's why I go to red zone, turnovers, special teams. I think you got to win those 3 areas.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'd like all 3 of those as well, by the way. But specifically for Kansas City, it comes down to 3 things for them as well. And it is, how are you going to protect that left tackle? It has to be a change in dynamic in that the chip has to be there all game long, or you have to stay in 2 tight end formations, which is something I've been asking for a couple of weeks because like you saw against Green Bay, Noah Gray is a very spotty performer. It really comes through for you. You need to double down on that. You need to keep the bulk on there. And I think if you're going to help out the left tackle, that is going to allow Patrick the time to really slim down and simplify the read structure. There's so many concepts in this Chiefs offense that they have been reluctant to pull out. They have not simplified, and keep it simple as it should be the name of the week here, because if you can keep another blocker in, I think it allows Patrick to make better decisions quicker and just run the ball. I'd love to see him be like Josh was last week and actually just take the yards that are sitting in front of you and make the most of it and reset the downs. That's what I'm looking for there. Protect that tackle and allow all that to happen. On the other side, it is picking what you want to do, your poison, that will actually move the ball. It's just got to be a little bit of balance. They have to run the ball. They have to pick someone to feed. Travis Kelce, I think what's not being reported in the national media is that that deep bone bruise, he had a hyperextension like a couple of days before the regular season started. That's still bothering him. It is still an active treatment every single week. And so anything you can do to supplement by having a primary receiver, and Rashee Rice seems to be in that role now, that you just feed that more so than we've seen recently. I think that's going to be the key. They're trying to do that, and they tried against Green Bay as well. I think this will be a different situation, but they have to double down on that. And lastly, on defense, you have to play team swarm defense. There are two keys here. Jack Cochran's one of them that we already discussed. The other is that starting free safety. Brian Cook is out. We don't know the longevity of it. Likely a stint on IR, hopefully not season ending. But that leaves a backup, first-year player in Kansas City, Mike Edwards, to be a starter along with Justin Reid, who has been playing better in the box than he has deep. And Brian Cook saved 3 touchdowns so far this season solo. So as the last line of defense, he has really come through. The path to victory for the Buffalo Bills is straight down the middle, through the middle linebacker spot and that deep safety spot. And the Chiefs have to play team defense in order to protect that. So do they change their coverage patterns? Do they allow him to have some responsibilities, Mike Edwards, that is, with just doubling, where you have some help underneath on probably Diggs would be my bet. You're going to see some new players out on the field, and that's going to be Chamari Connor in particular. And you'll probably see a little bit of Cam Jones if they need an extra linebacker level as well. That's a lot of question marks. So protect the middle, protect those players that are standing in, and that's going to be the third thing to get this job done.
Sounds like Dalton Kincaid is going to be the key for the Buffalo Bills to take advantage of some of this middle of the field opportunity that you've been talking about. And so that brings us kind of full circle to the dynamics of this football game. Feels like a lot of interesting dynamics across the board for both of these football teams. Mahomes in Arrowhead is a tough draw, but that's what's up against the Buffalo Bills if they want to start this run. And then obviously Kansas City wants to find their game and make sure that they're playing their best football heading into the postseason as they look to defend their Super Bowl championship. So this has been a great conversation, Ryan. Really, really appreciate it, and really appreciate everyone for being here along for the ride. And there's plenty of more content coming your way from both Locked On Chiefs and Locked On Bills the rest of the week to get you ready for this game. And, of course, all the post-game coverage you could possibly imagine. So make sure that you are subscribed. Take a second to rate, review, and share the podcast. We'd really, really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day, and we look forward to catching up with you again